when it comes to the time traveler's wife, it really does challenge whether or not you can accept that a 36-year-old man can travel back 30 years and talk to the woman he's going to marry eventually and not consider that creepy. So let's summarize what happens in the pilot real quick. Since Claire was 6 years old, Henry has popped up in her life. Now, mind you, Henry is a time traveler, so when he sees 6-year-old Claire, he's 36, and he seems to, since she was 6 years old, kind of molded her and even hinted that they'll end up together in the long run. This makes it so by the time she's 20 and she meets up with the Henry she's supposed to be with, who's 28, she is already enamored with him and she has been dreaming of having sex with him for who knows how long. Unfortunately, though, the 36-year-old that she fell in love with is not the same guy who is the 28-year-old that she's supposed to be with, and the 28-year-old is an ass. He has sex with her and essentially cheats on his girlfriend at the time with her, and she just doesn't see how she is supposed to fall in love with this man who's so terrible. And that's when you start to learn that as much as the 36-year-old molded the young Claire into the woman that she is when she's 20, it seems that the 20-year-old Claire is supposed to mold this 28-year-old Henry into the man that she loved or loves, who is 36. So in terms of highlights, I will admit that Theo James and Rose Leslie do make a cute match. They have good chemistry, and I would say based off of who she played in Game of Thrones and who he played in Divergent, you can see they really learned how to do the little smoldering. They learned how to do smoldering faces, how to really capture not only the opposite actor's attention but your attention, and really make it so that you get invested quick. Now, I'll admit, hearing Claire talk about multiple times how she waited 14 years to have sex with Henry, it does take you out of the moment, because then you're reminded that even though Henry never did anything to her when she was a kid or teenager, there's still that ickiness of it all. Yet at the same time, that ickiness is combating the chemistry and the compatibility of Leslie and James. So it's like, it's a highlight that they're able to fight that thought in the back of your head about how creepy this whole situation is, which is the on-defense topic. It's really hard to get past the concept of, Henry could have possibly groomed this young girl to be his wife. Because one of the things that kind of confused me about this show is that it doesn't deal with time paradoxes. Henry can go into the past and actually interact with his younger self and remember this whole situation, and nothing seems to go awry. So when it comes to him talking to a young Claire, there's always this need to question of what happens if Claire decides to go a different direction? And also, how much is Henry kind of pushing her in order to go into this direction and be with him? And I would even say there's a good reason to ask, why is he pushing this with Claire? And maybe this is just me, but I also find myself wondering, we heard about a woman named Ingrid that Henry was dating. What would have happened if Ingrid ended up being his long-term partner and eventually his wife? Was that ever explored, and he just realized that wouldn't work because she learned the truth, so that's why he switched to Claire, because she's a bit more amiable, and maybe why he possibly groomed her into accepting who he is? It's one of those weird things where you can kind of see that the show wants you to push the idea that fate is the reason that these two got together, why Henry ends up going back in time and popping up near Claire because maybe she needed him in some capacity that way. But from face value, if you don't watch the episode and you just hear like little bits and pieces, it raises so many eyebrows and red flags that it can be the type of thing that makes you think that I don't want to watch this because it's a little bit too creepy for me. Sort of like how Licorice Pizza tries to get you past the whole issue of a grown-ass woman deciding she wants to be with a teenage boy. It's one of those things where if you can get past what really tries to challenge you and you sticking around, you'll actually enjoy it, even though Licorice Pizza has a racist depiction of Asian people. in terms of initial impressions, I definitely watching this more because I'm familiar with the actors' work than I am really caring about their characters at this point. Because dealing with their characters and the whole fact that Henry is molding Claire into the woman that he knows when he's older, or when she's older rather, it's still very difficult to get past that. So, well, it's impossible to ignore it. At the very least, I'm trying to, or rather hoping that because this show is trying to actively make it seem that, just as much as Henry was kind of a mentor to Claire, and mentor being a way to not make it sound as creepy as grooming or a predator, they're going to try to show that Claire was also someone who mentored and helped for, well, basically, Henry grew up into this 36-year-old who's actually charming, rather than this 28-year-old who seemingly is a douche who would cheat on his girlfriend just because someone told him and he believed that they'll end up his wife one day.